Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Brother Dear. That was a beautiful introduction. I feel like anything that I could say would just pale in comparison to what Lieutenant Colonel John Flynn said tonight. That was one of the most beautiful sharings I've ever heard. It was gorgeous. But I wrote out a little story here just to tell you a little bit about my story at Mater Dei and my family's. So I almost didn't come to Mater Dei. There was a girls' high school in Anaheim in a beautiful old brown building called Marywood. And they came around to Holy Family and looked at our grades and offered some scholarships to folks. And I was offered a scholarship to Marywood. Well, my wonderful mom and dad didn't evidently think that's where they wanted me to go to high school, but they wanted me to have input. So what my dad did, that was 1960, what my dad did is brought me to every Mater Dei football game that season. That happened to be the 1960 CIF championship with John Hewart as the quarterback. Ladies and gentlemen, there was no contest about where I wanted to go to high school. And I would like to thank Mater Dei for honoring me as from the great class of 1965. As I checked the list, I think I'm the first one from 1965, and we graduated just a mere 51 years ago. And so very, very grateful that Mater Dei looked back and digs deep for us. We were very proud of our class at Mater Dei. We did a couple of things that still hold at Mater Dei. In those days, we had an alma mater, but it didn't have any music. It just had the words. And so our student council took it upon ourselves to find a composer to do the music to the alma mater, and that was Dr. Paul Salmanovich in Los Angeles Diocese. And we commissioned him, we raised the money, and commissioned him to put the melody to the words of our alma mater. You like it? Yes, thank you. Also, I'm wearing my husband's Mater Dei ring tonight. There was no stone in the Mater Dei ring. They were all metal and had been that way for 15 years. We were the 15th class to come through Mater Dei to graduate. We graduated when the school was 15 years old, and we thought it should have a stone in it because that was becoming to be popular. So again, we went to the administration, our student council, and asked for the possibility to have stones in the rings. And Father Monsignor John Riley said yes, but it didn't affect our class. It went in the next year. So from then on, people have had the choice for stones. So we're really happy about that. Another thing I wanted to tell you is it says in my bio that I won the Elks Leadership Award. That's a night I'll never forget, and I want to tell you about it. So there was one boy, Jim Reese and myself, we were selected to win the Elks Leadership role. So, we wore Mater Dei uniforms, gray skirts, white blouse, red sweater, every day, not any choices, every day. And so for this event, I got to dress up and wear little heels, and I went down to the Elks Club, and the lights were very low, and there was a spotlight, and they announced us, and as I walked to get my award, I missed the step and fell flat on my face at the Elks Club. And I remember hearing the Elks just all collectively go, but then two wonderful men came and picked me up and set me up, and I accepted the award. That was a very big lesson in my life, literally and figuratively, that when you get knocked down, you get back up. And that was something, I was a senior, that's what I had learned at Mater Dei. I'm so grateful for the Catholic experience and for the social times that we lived through in the 60s. I just wanted to remind especially the young students that this time was very different than what it is like now. John F. Kennedy was the first Catholic president, remains the only Catholic president that we've ever had. When we were at Mater Dei in 1961, our freshman year, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis in the Bay of Pigs, with ships heading towards Cuba and the threat of nuclear war. And I remember here at Mater Dei, as some of my friends that were there in the 60s, that everything stopped at Mater Dei and everybody went to confession. Priests came from everywhere, and our whole student body went to confession that day. And then we all gathered together for Mass, all together. And that wasn't something we typically all did, because there wasn't any place big enough for the whole group. But we gathered outside and prayed, because this was a very serious thing. It taught me that day how our church gathers around the signs of the times and social events. And we were unified, and we weren't afraid after that. I also remember the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated, November 22nd or 23rd, 1963. Everyone knows where they were when John Kennedy was assassinated. I was in the 200 wing in Mr. Noonan's Algebra 2 class, and I was sitting behind Paul Schley, who's here tonight. We thought that it was a skit for the football game. We couldn't believe that it was really true that the president had been shot. Now, that night we were scheduled for a CIF playoff game, football, and we had a great season. We were 13-0 with 13 big O's. No one had scored on the Monarchs that year. So we were the heirs apparent for the CIF title, and this was the day Kennedy was assassinated. And we went, they kept the game scheduled, and we drove on buses to Redlands, and we lost 3-0, 3-0. We had an undefeated season and suffered that humiliation, but you know what? It was a heartbreaking day for so many other reasons, that it taught all of us to put things in perspective. And here at Mater Dei, the accomplishments of our campus, our faith, everything, especially sports in the 60s, were so huge. That was a big lesson. And my friend Vicki was a cheerleader there that time too. And I also want to remind you that during our 4 years at Mater Dei, both the Vatican Councils were held, one in our freshman year and one in our senior year. So our church was moving and changing so dramatically. Mass during our time at Mater Dei changed from Latin to English. And that was a really huge change. But from that we learned the flexibility that's required to be a Catholic in the world. And again, we were guided by great faith leaders. Also, we wore skirts that had to touch the ground when you knelt down, all right? We wore chapel veils because your head had to be covered. And of course, we got to wear belts also, so we could roll up our skirt and then buckle the belt. We were fine. And then when we got caught by student council, then you just whipped off the belt, lowered the skirt, knelt down, no problem. But that was also another form of flexibility. I want to just end by telling you the first inklings of social justice for me were because of my religion teacher, Sister Immaculata, a Sister of St. Joseph of Orange. She took 6 of us our senior year to Los Angeles to welcome back the people who had marched in Selma, Alabama with Dr. Martin Luther King. She took us to the Catholic community to welcome them as students, to open our eyes to a world so much bigger than our campus at Mater Dei. That had changed my life that particular day. First of all, I'd never been in a black church. I'd never heard Catholics sing black music like was the gospel music in the Catholic Church. And to talk to the marchers and cite their dedication as Catholics was life-changing for me. I just want to say thank you so very much. On behalf of the class in 1965, we had so many wonderful people, teachers, doctors, lawyers, so many marriages that are still intact. My husband and I, at 48 years, almost all of us are, I believe all of us are still married, our Mater Dei romances, although my romance wasn't with my husband Bill when I was at Mater Dei. Well, we're not going to talk about about that now, but I did want to mention what a great place Mater Dei is to meet a spouse, because man, you have your opportunities, and still is that way. I'm married. My husband, he was a cheerleader with us, but after he came back from Vietnam, and many of us also married other people, but lots of Mater Dei. I thank you on behalf of my family. My mom is with the Lord. Dad's so proud of all of us. We have had 24 Mater Dei grads in our family between 1965 and 2010, and all of us are so proud of that legacy and all of our friends at Mater Dei. I am so grateful to Mater Dei for meeting my husband here as cheerleaders, my lifelong friends, our Catholic faith, the call to charity, the call to justice, the call to leadership, the legacy of honor, glory, and love. And I want to close with just a little scripture. Yesterday, I got to be at the Mass with 250 of our American bishops who are meeting here in our diocese through the USCCB. And it was not a lot of laity were there, but I was invited as the Director of Catholic Charities. And there was a beautiful reading there from Kings about when Elijah went to heaven in the fiery chariot, and his servant Elisha was with him and asked him for something as a legacy. He said, when they had crossed over, Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask me for whatever I may do for you before I am taken from you." And Elisha answered, "May I receive a double portion of your spirit." And Elijah said, "You have asked something that is not easy." And ladies and gentlemen, I think unconsciously what I was saying in my years of Mater Dei was, I don't need wealth or material goods. And I do thank you for this ring. It means a lot to me. But I asked Mater Dei to give me a share of her spirit. And indeed, that is what Mater Dei has given me. That spirit is so alive in this room tonight, in all of us here together, in the spirit of Mater Dei, our mother, the mother of our Lord Jesus. I thank you, Mater Dei, for recognizing me and the class of 1965, and God bless all of you.
And our final inductee tonight is Dr. I just remember him as Lenny, ASB President. Dr. Lenny DiLorenzo, class of 1999. He will be introduced by our one and only, so far, Gates Millennium Scholar and former ASB officer, Andrew Nguyen, and Ms. Helen Steeves, our Director of Campus Ministry.